you need to step out of your comfort zone when it comes to interacting with people, because you can only learn from somebody who's been to where you are going to. That's the only way you're gonna
Mm,
get, you're gonna actually get to where you want to be.
mm.
Interaction. Do not be afraid to step out. I know it's tough for some. I know there's some people who are natural introverts, and I get it. But sometimes, you need to be able to do what you don't want to do to get what you want to get. That kind of thing.
Obinna, are you sure you are not going to add pastor to that list of things that, that you do? Your early life is just really remarkable. Uh, can you just tell me about your heritage? You are literally a third generation artist. Like that is so cool. I've never heard of that before. I've heard of second generation, but not heard of third generation. So please just tell me about yourself and tell me about that.
Okay, thanks for having me. An absolute pleasure to be here. Well, I think that for me, it's always been. I mean, my life has always revolved around art and artistic personalities, and people who are who can create in whatever way form. And I think that it starts very early. Before I turned 10, we always had a studio in my house. And back in the 80s, there were really no computers. It was just, very talented people, visualizers, if you like. So my dad always had an office. I recall, that doubled as a studio. There's something called the yellow cabinet, where for illustrators back in the 70s, 60s. So you always have a cabinet that had all your tools. So you have your markers, your something called letter set, that had pretty much all your alphabets that you take up and stick up. I'll come to that later. But anyway, you had a long metallic rule for. So if you open Photoshop now, you see that it's calibrated like a ruler, but then there's actually a real stainless steel ruler. So a T-square drawing board, and my dad had all of that stuff. So I grew up with that, and nothing else matters in the world than to become an artist. So I grew up a little bit. I found out that my grandfather was a photographer, and he was a photographer in the 1940s. My dad was born in 1949 in Ibadan. So, of course, before he was born, my grandfather was taking photographs anyway. So, yeah. So and he was in Ibadan at the time, Noyo State at the time, Western Nigeria, as it was called at that time. And my dad, there was a coup 1966. I mean, for those who went to Nigerian history, and a war, started in 1967. And my dad, obviously of Eastern extraction, had to fight to survive. So he joined the army at a very
Mm,
young age, just before 20, and he
okay.
fought for those 3.5 years and came to Lagos. Obviously, decimated. The East was, in tatters and ruins. But he came here, and But the interesting thing is, while he was in the army, he fought for a couple of months and had a very severe battle injury. And he nearly lost his leg, the ability to walk. So he was on crutches for a while, but he joined the science department. So they would draw, obviously, everything around a military setup like that would require all
Mm,
sorts of all sorts of assets to help them. So he would draw signs, saying, okay, military zone, keep off, etc. Then signals and stuff like that. So he joined the part. So he was like an officer at, and so they had an art department. So he would
mm,
illustrate, he would draw, and all that stuff. And he also would, paint do some painting from imagination and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I think if I need to check, because I still have his portfolio, I need to double check. There's a particular painting that we used to have of, a soldier, gathered around like a fire or something. I remember that very vividly. I found out where that painting is. Anyway, so after the
Mm,
war, he came to Lagos and started working for Kingsway stores, and he used to illustrate. So basically, 50% off, do the poster, because everything was handmade back in the 70s. There's no computers,
yeah.
everything. So if you didn't have the talent to do it, you couldn't do it. So, so I think it was illustrating for Kingsway stores, doing all the posters and stuff. And an English guy called Mr. Parker. I said, look, young man, you've got great talent. Why don't you go to an art school? So that's how you enrolled.
Mm.
at Yabatech. It was called popularly known as College of Tech, and the day it's
Yeah.
popular as it's known as Yabatech now, but then it was known as
Yeah.
College of Tech. So he enrolled in
Mm-hmm.
1971 or 1970,
Mm.
between 1970 and 1971, and you know, so he went to art school. Obviously, he was a remarkable student. Graduated
Yeah.
best of his class. So
Yeah.
interestingly, in somewhere between 1972 and 1974, my dad was illustrating for Longman Publishers. And for those people who grew up in Nigeria in the 90s and the 80s and maybe a bit of the 2000s, there were textbooks by the publishing house, very famous publishing house called Longman. And they would have English textbooks. They would have, a lot of texts for secondary schools and stuff like that. So he used to illustrate a lot of drawings. I think,
Please make my child
he,
happy right now. Which one? Which one?
yeah.
Do
So
you want
he
to call it?
so he illustrated stories from an African village, and in that illustration is a tiny book, I think A5, where like a tiger is jumping into a market square. So I think I still have some of that
Wow.
stuff because I still have a lot of his drawings from that period. They're still very pristine, kept in very good condition. Anyway, this was essentially the precursor for me to this is my precursor and what eventually led me into that space, and at the age of eight,
Mm.
quite even the primary school, everybody was saying I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer. I said I want to become an artist, and that's where my journey started. Essentially, work for two ad agencies. So my dad, essentially went on to work for a company called Lintas Lagos, which was the biggest and the oldest advertising agency at the time. I was there for
Mm-hmm.
25 years. So all I wanted to do in my life was just be an artist and work in advertising. So I went to art school. I went to the University of Nigeria. I had specialized in painting. I mean, I had the ability to draw as well. So that sort of continued.
Wow.
So sometime in 2009, I said, you know what? So I grew up. Something that was very predominant in my house was that we watched a lot of television. So I was really obsessed with, moving pictures and in 2009, I'd done it. I thought I'd done enough of advertising. So there was an opportunity to work in a TV channel. So I took that opportunity, called an N24. It was a news channel. So that was my introduction into film and television and broadcasting. And, that's pretty much set the tone for what I was going to do next in my career. It has eventually led me to where I am now. I'm really thankful for it. So that's a bit of my journey. So everything around me has really been around. So right now, so I'm the director of content at Moniepoint, and a part of my job involves everything around content production and content marketing. So bringing, content to life that helps sell products of the company and also helps with a lot of employer branding, essentially showcasing what we're about, that kind of thing, and essentially painting the company in great light and a great marketing tool for the company. But apart from that, I'm involved in a lot of film projects as an executive producer or a co-producer or helping develop projects or bringing projects to life. I've worked across the spectrum of filmmaking, producing, working the creative side of things. I've also handled the camera myself a lot of times. I've worked on a lot of. So interestingly, I used to be the creative director at Red TV, where we created a lot of curated content,
Oh, yeah.
original content. In the golden years of, I mean, we're pretty much in the golden years of YouTube, but when content marketing was a big thing, pioneered by banks, the Danny TVs, the Red TVs, the Accelerate TVs, etc. I was part of that movement between 2014, 2015 to, till about now. So, I've been across that spectrum. So it's a great journey. I tell people that I'm very thankful. I'm very happy. And I find myself blessed and fortunate to be paid to do what I love to do, that kind of thing. Because I don't think everybody's that lucky, to be in a space. So that's essentially my story. And apart from that as well, in addition to that, I'm very much involved in music. I've been playing keyboards for a while, so compose music for film. I have a very serious obsession with music for film. So in a nutshell, that's really that's really about my journey.
Is it that, guys? That's a real nutshell because Obinna is. I've seen your. I mean, I'm just like, no, Lord. Like, why would you give one guy all this time? Like, share this thing, balance this thing right. This is not right. This is not right. And
Yeah,
it's
thank
so beautiful to just see how your your family and the heritage that you carried on. There's this thing about Nigerian culture that people talk about where, the parents almost force their children out into a different
Yeah,
field, maybe because of what
yeah,
they've gone
yeah.
through and things like that,
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
it's
In fact, I tell you an interesting story. So when I
uh-huh.
told my dad I wanted to be an artist, and he was like, "Oh," because he had seen the realities of being, he was very successful, but he was saying, why did I think if looking back, I think if I wanted to do law, I think I would have been good at it, and stuff like that. But
Mm.
there was a very, very potent hunger and desire to actually create. And for me, I was so convinced that this was what I wanted to do. So just to add to the fact that my dad wasn't super on board, but I think later he gave into it and and supported me. So yeah.
Amazing. Um, Another thing that caught my attention about you
Mm.
is so this is how I first saw you on LinkedIn. And
Okay.
this when you read I say this, people please don't take this like a stalkerish thing. But
Okay.
I was counsel had this amazing video. It's someone that follows you and you know as well. Hopefully we'll have him on the show at some point. Counsel Bolu, an amazing
Okay.
artist as well.
Yeah. Cancel.
Amazing guy. Amazing guy.
Talented
And so
guy.
he just released some stuff, and then I just saw you comment and just praise and hype and just really talk about this guy. I'm like, who is this guy that I just hyping this guy? Like maybe I just thought maybe he's just a friend, and then followed when I saw some other people that you had talked about. It's no sort of this way the LinkedIn
Mm.
shows the post.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
People you
and then
can accept. Yeah, correct.
exactly, and I noticed that you were championing a lot of people. You're not hyping yourself. I'm like, how far now? Like that's not the way LinkedIn works. It's not the way LinkedIn works.
Yeah,
um,
everybody's always, I'm so thankful for just starting this big project. Oh, yeah.
you
Everybody's always, yeah, self hype. I know. Yeah.
and that does got me on the rabbit hole, and I just followed you, and I just kept seeing how you talked about other people's work, and then I don't think at that time you had started your official role right now. Well, at least you had not officially announced
Okay.
it, anyways, at that time. But
Okay.
by the time you announced it, I saw the way you were also talking about the team and just the way they did the work. And it was not so much that, oh, I did this stuff, but the team that did the work and there's one particular video that you guys did. Video is so good. Like it was so
Which one?
well
Which one?
thought
Which
through.
one?
So there was a campaign that
Yeah.
moved across from one room to the other, from one place to the other, and it was capturing different people's point of view of the product, of how it affected their lives, and the different members of the team or rather members of the company that were speaking about the
Oh,
product.
yeah,
On
yeah, yeah. Our Q2 video, I think so. Yeah, from earlier this year. Correct.
yes, that's
Yeah.
that's the one. And that video was so good. Like whoever did all the guys, they need a raise. It
There's the
was
team.
so
Yeah,
good.
we have a great team here. Our global marketing team.
Um,
Yeah, great. I'll tell
it's
them.
amazing.
I'll stand up tomorrow.
Mm.
I'll mention it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. We will appreciate feedback like this. It makes us work harder.
Yeah, yes, yes. And so I saw all of that, and the vibe you were giving me was like a big brother vibe. Like you had this big brother vibe, like someone that would champion the other guys who are that kind of. That was the vibe I was just getting. Like this is just like a big brother vibe
Mm,
that I would like to hang around with. And that kind of leads me to the second point I want to talk about because there is an emotional crucible that artists have to
mm,
bear, right? Especially when they're just starting or when they're just coming up along the rocks. I've been fortunate to help a few young people as well because I've done a few
mm.
years, right? And it's
Yeah.
incredibly difficult, right, for them to be able to carry some of the emotional burdens that comes with choosing this path.
Mm.
How have you been able to champion so many? Because there's so many people. I don't know how you have the heart to be able to accommodate all of this. Like,
Yeah. No.
it's a lot. I don't
It
think
is.
it's a training or a skill. I think it's a heart. I think it's a
Yeah.
character.
It is.
But please talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a very, that's a very, yeah, I like your choice of words, like a crucible. It's so if you look at the creative journey and the creative odyssey, if you like,
Mm,
you first of all you have to be ruthlessly obsessed with it because there's certain days you drew about it that it comes like I had my own fair share of doubt, self-doubt and all that stuff because
mm,
the thing the only credibility an artist has is his work. Whether you are a
Yes.
poet, you're a singer, a performer, and whatever you are, whatever, if you put in creative intellect or creative gray matter and producing anything, all you have is what you've produced, because they say an artist is only as good as his last work, or that kind of thing, and that's all you have.
Yeah.
If you're an actor, you're a director, whatever it is, your last body of work is all you have. So what tends to happen is that the imposter syndrome is so rife, it's so in your face. But then again, you have to be ruthlessly obsessed with just becoming a creative, because it's a daily process of becoming. There is really no destination. So people who are starting their
Wow.
journey need to understand that. So every day there's something, there's a new thing to pursue. There's because where does creativity end and when does it begin? You cannot answer that. So the point is that the process doesn't have a start point or an end point. You just know that there's something burning, and it's kind of like a writer who has a burning story. You are in your bathroom, you're probably taking a dump, you're having a shower, whatever it is, and something hits you, and all you just know is that you have to make it happen. That's how it's like a fire that constantly burning. So the question now is, how do you keep up? How you do that is to keep that fire burning. So it means that you must constantly feed your creative juices, whatever it is that makes you bring all of that to life. You need to keep that fire burning. That means that be in places where you are constantly immersed with things that inspire you. And the truth about it is that may be a bit of a paradox, because some people find themselves in some really, really dire conditions. They might not be in they may not be in the best socioeconomic class. They might be in places where creativity is an escape. But the point here is that you need to find what keeps your fire burning and keep it burning, because at the end of the day, you alone can kindle that fire. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So the point is, and again, you have to constantly ask yourself a question. Like when people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to be a creative," I ask, "Are you really sure? Why do you think it is something you want to do?" And I find out that a lot of people really are pretenders, because it's an escape. It's easy. Oh, I'm a photographer, or I do graphic design, or because it's cool. But when the realities of actually doing it, starts to come at your face, it's only people who are really there for the long term, on the long haul, who really survive. So I think number one is to, what are the things that actually, why are you doing this? Your why. I think that's number one. What is your why? If you can establish your why and you know your why every day, then you're on the path. Secondly, you need to stoke your embers. You need to stoke the flames of your creativity. Whatever it is that is making you or driving you towards that goal, you need to keep it burning. You need to keep it burning. Because what tends to happen is a lot of people lose their fire. And it happens, and it's natural. Like, I mean, writers have writer's block. Yeah,
Yeah.
you as a designer today, it's not happening, but you have to keep, because I have people which, it's not happening for me, and I speak to them and I send them some material. Okay, check this out. Listen to this music. Take a walk. Close your computer. Just go somewhere, and that kind of. Go and have a conversation with people who are talking about things that are completely. You find out that in that isolation, you have something. There's something that draws you back, and whatever brings you, that thing that brings you back is a sign to the fact that that is where you're meant to be. Because I mean, like, I remember doing, my formative years, just getting involved in projects where I'm either editing something, I'm trying to do some sort of motion design or 3D design or something, and I'm in a place where it's not quite. I just take a walk, I just walk away or do something completely different. And the thing about the artistic process is that it's never really about the time you're focused on doing that thing in that time. The artistic process starts in your imagination. Like when I was in school, when I wanted to paint a piece, I had done it in my head. It's finished. I see the picture. So once I pick up my brush, I'm basically replicating what is in my mind. And what tends to happen, and it's kind of like, if I compose a piece, a musical piece, I leave it. When I go away, I'm playing that thing in my head and I'm adding to the structures I've laid down. That's the thing about it. It's like, I remember in school we used to have this question. When is the artistic process over? When is a painting truly complete? Is it when you put a last brush stroke, or is it when you've taken it to the gallery and hung it? When does it? So in the end, it doesn't end, because even while it's up there on the wall, you're like, "Oh, one stroke of turquoise somewhere, one, so it's, you get what I'm saying? So, like
Yeah.
in music, one extra note, one. So my point is, you have to understand that it's almost like an ad infinitum process. It doesn't end. It's something that's continuous, and you have to live with that. You know that. So that's what I would say. How I would answer
When
that question.
when you said like it's it's not an ending journey, like the journey just continues. In my mind, I'm like, really, like this there has to be an end to this, because there
Uh,
is a lot there is a lot that a lot of people have sort of
yeah.
sacrificed and put down on the line to be able to try and get somewhere, because they believe in this and they believe in that. But when it now comes to the artist themselves, I want to talk about how they are able to um, build connections and relationships
Okay.
that will sustain them. I think that sometimes artists can be nomads.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Silos.
so
And being
yes,
it's always a yeah, like monks on a journey
yo,
to El Dorado somewhere. I know. I know. I know.
and not everyone is gifted with the gift of gab. Not everyone has that natural outgoing personality that comes
Correct. Correct.
with certain artists, right? But I found again by observing you and just the way you've interacted with people, that somehow I don't know whether you started out that way or whether you've built that along the way. I mean, please tell me about that journey. But
Yeah.
you've,
Yeah. Connecting with people. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
How do you
I
manage?
so I mean, this is something that has always been with me, and I think I get it from I think my dad, because my dad is sort of we're very alike. You know, he's a very so in the community. If there was I can say I can even say this, like when we're younger, when we still all of us were still living together, and you know somebody we used to live in a close the last place we lived before I moved out, and somebody very important in the community passes away. Everybody converges in the house and expects, comes to my dad for him to break the news for the family. So he had always been in that situation where he has to be the encourager, and and maybe because he's a pastor, maybe that helps. But so he's always been the person galvanizing people, talking to people, getting people together, and he's very sociable person. He comes in, very warm. So I think it's something I sort of some I wouldn't say it's genetic, but or maybe it is, but it sort of just flowed with me. So I remember when I was in university, one of my very best friends, he was asking me, so you have a way of connecting with people. What are you doing with it? What are you doing with that gift? So I think for me, so this is how I say it. I have a mantra. I say to myself, I know everybody in the world. I've not just had an opportunity to speak to everyone. So if you go around with that,
Okay.
if you go
Okay,
around
let's
with
say
that,
that again.
yeah, so yeah, so yeah, I mean, I feel I know everybody in the world. I've just not had the opportunity to speak to everyone. So if you go around with that sort of uh, mindset, it's very easy for you to connect with people. And again, in a world where we learn to build boundaries and see the worst of people and magnify people's shortcomings. Why don't you do the opposite? That kind of thing. And for me, and I tell you, that's one of the secrets to I think my success. Wherever I am, just the ability to connect with people. Make them let them feel a sense of value. Let them feel that they're heard. Let them feel that when you're speaking with them, they feel a serious sense of value. It makes them, like they literally eat out from the palms of your hands. And for me, that's what I do. Let people see the best of who they are, that kind of thing. And again, that's another thing that's missing. Be open and sincere with people. No matter, and it's hard to be, especially when you're in a leadership position and you have to make decisions. My point is, you can put a face of humanity, a human face to different things. I mean, you have to be firm when you need to be firm, but the point is, try to be open and be sincere with people. Let them feel good. There's nothing. Look, once you make anybody feel good, they'll give you anything you want. That kind of thing. It's non negotiable. You get my point? So it's something I've learned. So and again, be sincere, and it's not about false praise or being a psychophile. No, it's about intentional, authentic, really heartfelt, empathy for people, and if that way you connect with people. Like for me, I mean, it's the easiest thing to strike up a conversation, with anyone, that kind of thing. And just look for similar interests, look for something that the person likes. And that's how you start a conversation. So I think that for creatives, yeah, even if you're an introvert, right? I'm not saying you should go around speaking to everybody. No, not everybody's going to be Obinna. No, but my point is,
Yeah.
if you know that, hanging out with a certain crowd is going to get me to where I need to be, then that's what you need to do, because you're trying. We're all going somewhere, right? And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, let me see this analogy. So, Google, everybody uses Google Maps, right? Now, Google Maps will show you the quickest way to your destination, correct? Now,
Mhm.
we should apply that same, that same approach to life, that kind of thing. If you know this is going to get you to where you want to go, do it. I'm not saying you do anything crazy, but go to places where you would find people of like mind, people who think the way you think, people who have achieved what you've achieved. Like, for instance, if you're an artist, go for exhibitions, go and see other people's work. If you're a poet, go and see what other people listen to, read poetry, go and watch plays, go out there, have conversations. If you're a movie lover, go and watch movies, go to the cinema. Once it is done, have a conversation with people. Or go, if you can get to premieres, go for have a conversation. So how was the movie? What do you think? Oh, I think that character was X, that character was Y, kind of thing. Have conversations, kind of thing. And that's how you slowly build. And again, and because we are completely, we are digital nomads, in all respects. We are all online. We are all, having conversations, listening to conversations, whatever it is. If you find an interesting thread about something you like, add your 2 cents. Say, oh, by the way, I also think that X, on LinkedIn, there's a conversation about something that affects you. And that's how you build, so that, I like this comment. Somebody follows you. Somebody says, and that's how I've met a lot of people. DMs, I like what you said. Okay, can we connect? Blah 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 blah. And it's all over the world. So my point is, you need to step out of your comfort zone when it comes to interacting with people, because you can only learn from somebody who's been to where you are going to. That's the only way you're gonna get, you're gonna actually get to where you want to be. Interaction. Do not be afraid to step out. I know it's tough for some. I know there's some people who are natural introverts, and I get it. But sometimes, you need to be able to do what you don't want to do to get what you want to get. That kind of thing.
Obinna, just segue. Are you sure you are not going to add pastor to that list of things that, that you do? The last thing I really want to talk about, and that has to do with how you personally, because part of one of the most beautiful things in your life is that you're a father, and I believe that the emotional or the things that are dear to us, they form like an anchor that allow us to to always steer our ship to the right shore and steer ourselves the right way.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm very thankful to God for my support system. I have a great wife who means everything to me, and I've known her for such a long time before we got married, and she's always been supporting. Always. I mean, sometimes I have to be away. I mean, she's a very busy person. She's also very busy, successful in her area, but she's being a very great supportive pillar. With the family, and just making sure that I'm able to do what I want to do. And it's the same way. Certain things sometimes I have to hold the fort for her as well. Because we're all
Yeah.
two very high performing people, really focused on very serious targets wherever we are. So it's a bit of a team. We have a very good team bonding ethic, team spirit, that kind of thing. So she's somebody who I can say is a very huge anchor for me. And I also think that my extended family as well. I mean, my parents are, God bless them. I mean, where would I be without them? My mother and my father, and they've always supported me, always praying for me, always, like whatever it is they do, super supportive. Then, my brothers, I have four brothers, and they are always, cheerleaders, that kind of thing, and, leading
Yeah.
on, that kind of thing. So I think I'm blessed to say that everyone around me is a pillar of support, in their own respects and in their own regard. So I'll say I've been very, very blessed in this area. So yeah. So my family mean a lot to me, that kind of, because I feel that for you to really achieve anything, you need, on the home front, you need a certain level of stability to keep your head in the right place. Because the truth about it is that, we're not spirits, we're human beings, at the end of the day, we need a lot of stability, a lot of grounding, and family a stable family helps you achieve that. That's the truth. That's no, because
Yeah.
if you have problems at home, I mean, there's some people who draw inspiration from chaos and adversity. Yeah, that's it's also part of the process. But you know,
Yeah.
there's something more profound about doing it from a place where there's peace, where there's a place where there's cohesion, there's a certain camaraderie, and there's something that just makes you just be your best. It's like a tree planted very close to the river. What it grows, it flourishes, that kind of thing. So yeah.
I love that analogy. Like the tree planted by the river. That's an amazing analogy. And that I think it's been a beautiful conversation just talking with you and looking at everything that you have shared. It really also points to me that I was really on the right track. Like it really does have that big brother vibe.